Good evening, gentlemen. Welcome to the Middleton Zoning Board of Appeals open meeting for the month of February 2019. Please be aware that tonight's proceedings are recorded for both video and audio. First order of business tonight are the minutes of the January 24th, 2019 ZBA meeting. All the board members read them and familiar with them?
Yes.
Entertain a motion to accept.
I'll make a motion.
Motion's made. Is there a second?
Second?
Motion's made and second. All those in favor vote.
Yep.
Yes.
Aye. The vote's unanimous. Minutes are accepted. Next item on the agenda, 58 South Main Street, application number 1056.
You want me to open it?
Please.
Okay. The Middleton Zoning Board of Appeals will hold a public hearing on Thursday, February 28th at 7 p.m. at Fuller Meadow to reconsider an appeal of the Middleton Building Inspector's decision to deny Richard and Diane DeSantis a building permit for construction of a single-family home on property located at 58 South Main Street, found on Assessor's Map 25, Parcel 86. The abutters have been notified, and there are a few comments. And that's it. Okay, that's all I got.
Anybody here to speak in favor of this application?
Hey.
Good evening.
Good evening, counsel.
I'm Attorney Joseph Sano, 270 Broadway, Lynn, Mass. 01904, representing the petitioners Richard DeSantis and Diane DeSantis. We were most recently here in September of 2018. At that time, our petition for a building permit was denied, primarily based upon the fact that I had not furnished sufficient documentation to establish whether or not the parcel owned by the DeSantises was ever held in common ownership with the adjoining lot at map 25, parcel 85. I appealed the decision to the Massachusetts Land Court, and in that process, I did do a history and search as to map 25, parcel 85. And the other documentation was furnished, I believe to the satisfaction of the land court that we had done a sufficient history of that parcel. That history consisted of going back in time to a point to establish that, again, the parcel was never in common ownership. The first part of that process was relatively easy in the sense that there was a deed in 1975 to William and Sarah George of that particular parcel among 3 parcels that they purchased. And there was a title reference back to 1942 where Charles Currier had transferred that particular parcel. In that transfer, it was conveyed to Raymond and Mabel Currier, possibly a relative. Raymond subsequently died, and Mabel conveyed the property to the Georges in 1975. Problem at that point was determining the history of the property prior to that time. I had started by granteeing and grantoring back to 1880, and I could find no transfer out of the property, and there was no title reference included in the 1942 deed from Charles Currier to the Mabel and Raymond. And on the documentation that I filed, those are exhibits C and D. Actually, B, C, and D. B being the deed from Charles Currier to Raymond and Mabel Currier. Exhibit C, the transfer by Mabel Currier to the Georges, and Exhibit D being a copy of the document from Patriot Properties to show that the Georges still own the property. I had hired a title examiner. She had done a title search and did find in another deed involving Charles Currier a title reference back to the estate of George A. Currier, the father of Charles Currier. I had made a request at the Essex Probate Court that they do a search in the archives to see if they could find the file for that estate. They were unable to do so, but they did say that they had a copy of the will of George Currier, which is Exhibit A, by the way, to the documentation that I filed. In that particular will, actually an unusual will from the ones that you usually see, what George Currier did is that he bequested or devised different parcels of property to his children. And in Clause 5 of that will, he left to his son Charles all his property on South Main Street and some other property as well. I did grantor the Curriers from 1909 forward. They tended to hold on to land. There was very little in terms of transfers. But in 1942, Charles did transfer the property to Mabel and Raymond, and then the property was conveyed again in 1975 to William and Sarah George. What that did establish, however, is that at no time was that parcel ever held in common ownership with the parcel owned by the DeSantises at map 25, lot 86, 58 South Main Street. So that belatedly, because I had failed to do that work at the time, that work was accomplished. Based upon that, was a joint request that we refer the case back to the Zoning Board of Appeals, and that's why we're here this evening. And I'm going to ask that based upon the further evidence that we've now provided, that the board allow our application for a building permit for 58 South Main Street.
Any questions from the board members?
Scott, do you feel that the evidence provided is sufficient?
The town attorney, I believe, gave a opinion that the information provided was sufficient to prove that the lot wasn't in common ownership at any point.
Have you looked over the material?
I have, and would be subject to the zoning of 1930, what was it?
1937.
Yeah.
But I'm not convinced, and I had a question, and I wasn't able to connect with Jay, that it's actually in compliance with the 37 bylaw as far as the setback. I've read the previous court decision, I've read the 37 zoning, as well as the current zoning, because the exception does allow you to use the lesser of the two. It only prevents you from increasing the zoning. The setback requirements, it doesn't prevent you from decreasing, so they're actually allowed to use the lesser of the, they can almost pick and choose. Some of today's, as long as it didn't increase, if it reduced, they're allowed to pick today's setbacks, but I don't think it meets either one in particular. It's the, I guess it's the rear yard setback at 11.5 feet. I tried to get in touch with the town attorney to discuss the previous litigation that addressed that, and I was unsuccessful before the meeting.
Pardon me?
I was unsuccessful before the meeting.
Oh.
That's my question, is the setback thing. It just doesn't seem
I think
kosher
the
here.
attorney provided the additional information requested to prove that it had the separate lot status.
Yeah.
Reading the bylaw, it clearly states you need a principal structure on either side to use the exemption.
Right. So the upshot is we don't have enough information just yet, right, on your end.
That's my opinion, but,
Yeah.
you know, the board's free to make their own decision. I wanted to speak to the town attorney regarding the previous lawsuit, which actually addressed this question. I read it. I'm not an attorney, so I wanted to speak to the town attorney on it.
Agreed.
All right.
When did the Georges convey the property to the DeSantis?
Well, they were conveyed the property in they've owned it since 1975.
And the DeSantis? They conveyed it to them in 75?
Yes, the Mabel Courier conveyed the property to them in 1975. 3 parcels, one of which is the Locust parcel.
And do we feel the will is sufficient evidence? Did the court feel that the will was sufficient evidence of ownership of that property back then? That's the only thing you could come up with, was a will.
Of course, yeah. Well,
Well,
it
it
was-
was kind of nebulous. It just said South Main Street. I mean, that could be,
Well, there was a title reference in another deed where Charles Courier conveyed some property. They simply didn't include a title reference in the 1942 deed, but again, the title reference was found in a subsequent deed. And and there's nothing on, actually, there's nothing on the record to indicate otherwise. As I said, I had grantor.
doesn't indicate it is, you know.
Well, at some point, if you have a will that's allowed in probate, and no objections were filed, and at that point, the will stands as a document, unless objections are filed, of which there were none, then that establishes the fact that he in fact owned the property. And the will, like a deed, conveys real estate, and there's nothing to indicate anything other than Charles Courier, who's named as the devisee of all the property on South Main Street, had the standing to transfer that property.
Well, South Main Street's a big, long street.
and keep in mind that-
It's not very specific.
Well, keep in mind that both 1942 and in 1975, when these properties were purchased, title searches would have been done to verify that. So we have to stand on what the public record states, and there's nothing on the public record to indicate anything other than the transfers and the conveyances and the devices as I've described. And also in preparing the plan, I realize there's been an issue raised. There was great care taken to make sure that the plan itself did comply with the zoning law of 1937 in terms of setbacks and side yards and so on.
And that would be if the exception applies.
Well,
That's how the plan was prepared, correct? It was prepared in compliance if the exception applies. Because the 37 calls for 60 feet setback from all streets, except if you have a dwelling on either side, then you can build on the building line.
yes.
So it was prepared in compliance with the ordinance if the exception applies, which we're not sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, I believe, we have addressed this issue before, and of course, on the parcel which I refer to as Locust, there is no dwelling.
Exactly.
And in terms of the property on parcel 87, when we were in the land court in 2008, at that point, we were reading the zoning law very literally, in the sense that it says that your property had to be on a line in order to meet the exception with the adjoining property. We had assumed at that point that on a line meant the front of the building was on a line with the one next door. And actually, the exception is that to be on a line, you have to have substantially the same frontage as the adjoining property, which I believe that we've complied with, both as to the frontage on South Main Street and on Main Street. The actual street would be South Main Street, and if you take a look at the plan that was filed, you'll see that the frontages as to the property at 85 South Main Street and the adjoining property is substantially the same. And so therefore, we believe that we've complied with the exception, and therefore, we've met that burden. And as such, that, would be entitled to the, to the building permit. I would have no objection, in terms of, talking to town council, to get his opinion. I've had a very good working relationship with your council. He's been very accommodating. And so if that's something that needs to be verified, we have no problem with that. But what I'm saying is that I believe we're in compliance with all of the requirements, including the exception to for the 1937 zoning law.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you are. I think it's very clear that it says you need a building on either side, but I really want town council to look at the decision out of the, I think it was the 08, which addressed that issue, I believe.
Yeah, well,
So,
Yeah, I'm not inclined to vote just on this yet, because I agree with Scott.
I mean,
So
I would like to hear
if you, want to go forward, I don't know what the other board members think.
what
but-
town council thinks of that.
sure.
If
Yeah.
I'm wrong, but,
Yeah.
he's the attorney, it's his, he's the one that has to defend us, so, I'd like him to weigh in on that.
Sure, I have no objection to that.
And Mr. Chairman, the board has 60 days from tonight to make a decision on this.
We also can continue
You're saying to
based on
continue it?
the fact that both parties agree.
Mm-hmm.
Would you be inclined to ask for a continuance for,
Well, I'm accepting the request of the building commissioner that he wants to get an opinion from town council, and I'm saying I have no objection to that. So if the board wants to continue the case, I think we'd still be within the 60-day parameter in any
I think
case.
you would be too, yeah?
And if not, we could have an assent to that, so I'm not concerned with that.
And it's only on that one issue.
Okay, that's fine.
That's I was convinced with the town council's opinion on the title. He felt it met it, so
Okay,
it's the setback and the on either side, which my question is still on.
yeah. And I'm sure we'll talk as well, that's fine. Again, I have no objection to that.
Can I just clarify one thing before we continue, which if we are in fact continuing? Do you have the letter, the email from town council? I don't have it printed out.
Right here.
Excuse me.
Questions?
For continuing, I don't have any questions.
We have a motion to continue?
I'll make a motion to continue the hearing and with the assent of,
Council, many people continue. Can I talk to
You
our
want to be
council?
here? Sure, absolutely. We'll take 5 minutes.
Oh, we forgot to ask members of the public.
Couldn't hear you.
We forgot to ask members of the public if they wanted to speak, because it is a new public hearing.
Does this have to be a majority vote, you think? Is this a majority vote? Majority vote, simple, what is it,
Appeal is 2/3.
2/3?
Two-thirds, yeah.
Yeah, variance, special permits and appeals are all 2/3.
2/3.
In fact, your board doesn't have any regular votes, except for maybe site plan, and that would fall under special permit rules for the most part. Are we off or on? Are we in recess?
I just said that, yeah.
excuse me.
Opinion from town council.
Paul, we're back on.
I couldn't hear you, sir.
I'm sorry. Yep, we're agreeable to, getting an opinion from town council
Okay.
and continuing this meeting.
Just the public, if they have anybody wants to say anything.
Anyone else speak on this matter? Okay, we have a motion.
I'll make a motion to continue the hearing till the March 2019 meeting of the Middleton Zoning Board of Appeals based on the assent of the applicant.
At 7 o'clock.
So moved.
A second?
Yep.
Motion's made and second. All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Okay. And I'm sorry, the date of the next meeting?
Is March 28th.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Sounds right.
He needs to sign the continuance, though, right?
No, we have 60 days. So it's after, it's after that.
Have him
we
sign
need to
the
extend.
continuance, because if nobody shows up next month and we go past the 60 days, it's constructively approved.
Yeah, and I'm not here
Us
next
shows
month.
up?
Just FYI.
Attorney Sato, you just need to sign the continuance form.
What is the next?
No.
5 Riverview is the next.
To see if we have any.
Yay.
Just fill this out.
Land court doesn't care if nobody shows up next month.
Same thing, too.
Correct.
Joseph said no.
And I will be away. And I will be away. Just go to Florida for 5 days. My husband needs to get out of the weather. We're on TV and he probably just heard that.
They agree.
$70 days, 80 days, it should be extended to,
An additional 30 days.
so all it says is public hearing for the appeal in 90 days, because we're afraid. All right, thank you. Place for you to sign here, too. Very official.
All right, the next item on the agenda is 5 Riverview Drive, application 1069.
The zoning board of appeals will hear the following petition on the application of Chris Dio for a special permit under section 3.3.7 of the Middleton zoning bylaw or any additional relief the board may find necessary to remove the existing non-conforming dwelling and construct a new dwelling with a deck on the same footprint on property located at 5 Riverview Drive, found on Assessor's Map 32, parcel 87. The abutters have been notified, and there is some correspondence.
Okay, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and the board. My name is Greg Bernard. I'm from John DeCoulis's office, here to represent Chris Dio, the owner of 5 Riverview Drive. Mr. Dio purchased the property and the home in 2006. He's been there 12 years, going on 13 years. And through the years, he's been working on the house, trying to get it fixed up, and he's come to the realization the best thing to do is tear it down and start all over again. So what I'd like to do is build a new dwelling on the same footprint. It's currently a non-conforming dwelling. He would like to add a deck on the front and on the right side of the house. The proposed deck that comes out roughly 11 feet, I think 4 inches, will not be closer to Riverview Drive than the current landing that's there now. There's a porch out front with a landing and steps leading up to it. The proposed porch will not increase the nonconformity. And again, the house will be on the same footprint. We started to put part of the project in motion 2 years ago when he needed a new septic system. He thought, well, I need a new septic system, and I'm gonna need a new well. This is the time to do it, he felt. The porch comes out from the left front corner. We're gonna offset that about 1 foot or 1.5 foot off the left front corner of the house so it does not get closer to the left sideline than the current house is. And again, it comes out about 11.5 feet, has a couple of jogs, continues along the right side. We'll have some French sliding doors on the right sides leading out to the deck. And as previously mentioned, in order to get the new septic system approved, which is approved, he needs to install a new well, which is shown near the right front corner of the existing garage. That location's already, it has also been approved by the Board of Health. With that, I can open it up to any questions you may have.
I'm the abutter.
Excuse me, sir. You're out of order. When the time comes, we'll be happy to have you speak up.
Excellent.
This is a special permit because,
It's non-conforming to begin with.
so we're going on the same footprint, right?
I believe there is also maybe a slight increase in the volume.
And the porch puts it out of the footprint, right?
The porch is outside the footprint, correct?
yeah.
But it's going in toward the garage, which is what I'm seeing here, right?
Part of it.
Right.
The porch wraps around, right, Greg?
Yeah, it starts near the left front corner of the house, so it does project towards the street line, but not more than the existing landing that's there now.
And towards the garage.
So the house is
And-
especially on, essentially on the same,
The house itself is on the same footprint.
is it going higher?
It's
still a-
increasing volume.
It's increasing volume. It's a two-story house now. It's going to remain a two-story house.
So how's it gonna be bigger?
I think some of the rooms, he's going to, may change the roof line. That might increase the volume.
Oh, okay,
It was a
I'm not
full-
even 100%
Yeah.
sure. He's increasing the volume, but we went along that premise that he was.
okay.
And before we do anything, we're gonna address the use of the garage, correct?
If you want to address that, yeah, that's
Yeah.
fine.
So before any
Yeah.
permits are issued, the, any illegal work or illegal use of the garage will be ceased and removed prior to any permits for the project.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be a condition. Is that a condition? Can we do,
I would
make that a
like to see,
condition?
I would like to see it as one, yes.
Yeah, okay. The porch is going out, as you're facing the existing house now, the porch is going to the left side of the footprint.
Well, it's going,
If you're on the street looking at the house, it's going to come towards the street,
The
about
front,
11.5 feet in the front,
Sorry.
that's the street,
and it's going to extend around to the right side of the dwelling.
on the right side.
Yep. Between the house and the garage, so that there'll be some deck on the right
Is
side of
that
the house.
land built up there? I notice you
Yes.
have a, is that gonna stay that wall that's there where the
Yes.
cars are parked?
Yep, that wall's going to remain,
So you're gonna keep that parking area there?
yes.
Yeah, I didn't see the picture.
That's the easiest thing.
Oh, okay.
The other is what he's proposing. And this is the wall that I was asking about.
Mhm.
And you should say you're gonna put a new septic and a new well?
That's correct. Unfortunately, it's a very difficult lot to get into to do the septic, because the septic is gonna be behind the house. So the septic won't be installed until the house comes down. That'll grant them access to get back there and do the septic work.
Board members have any questions?
Just kind of curious why there's, the garage is connecting to the septic system? What's in there?
There's a bathroom in there.
Oh. In a garage.
Currently, there's also a kitchen in there, which is part of the illegal use that Scott's referring to, which
Oh, okay.
which has been conditioned on approval for the septic system, that all be removed.
But the septic system will be for 4-bedroom, even though that house...
Now it's for a 3-bedroom.
Oh.
There's only 3 bedrooms in the house.
So will you disconnect the garage from the septic system? If, I'm not a septic
Keep
system.
the bathroom, right?
The bathroom will remain
Stay.
in the garage.
It'll have to be brought up to code and inspected. You'll have to get permits, bring it up to code and get it inspected, but there's nothing that prevents you from having a bathroom in a garage.
Okay. Yep. Any other questions?
Did you write? I thought you might have a question.
You were writing, so I wasn't sure whether you were finished or not.
Well, I think there's others to speak, and
There are.
so I'll wait.
Okay, so thank you.
I'm amazed how well they drew the house. The architect that does all this,
Yeah, there is a set of architect plans in there, and...
no, I mean the actual drawing of the
Yeah.
house.
No computer business.
Very, very,
Do you have anything else, Jim?
no.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Anyone to speak in opposition?
That would be us.
It's your turn, sir. Please come up to the microphone and introduce yourself.
I'm Greg Coster. I live at 25 Hilldale Ave, which is right next door. I really don't want them to have a deck even closer to my house. These guys have rock and roll fantasies that should have faded out 20, 30 years ago and decide to have live jams at all hours. And I would be opposed to them moving even closer to my back window while I'm trying to, go to sleep or anything like that. They're famous for having this big party Labor Day weekend where a couple years ago, they played till 3:30 in the morning, till the cops finally came down and shut them down. This year, the police showed up a little bit earlier to shut them down. Besides that, it's kind of weird that I live in a residential neighborhood, but I have maybe at any given day 5 to 6 commercial vehicles parked right next door to me in that parking area that you guys were talking about. I believe if you have a commercial vehicle, put it in the garage.
Well, just orientate me. You're behind his rear
Um,
on
I'm
Hillsdale?
on the very corner of that. Like, I don't know if you've ever been down that
Yeah,
street. I'm the very corner.
I know the area. So when you come down Hillsdale and you turn right on Riverview,
Yeah, when you come down
You're right
Hillsdale
on the corner.
and you make the sharp right to go around, that's my house,
right on the corner.
right on the corner.
Okay,
of
I got
Hillsdale.
you now.
So, yeah, they're basically in my backyard. My bedroom window and slider
Lots are close, yeah.
is right there, and, I just had talks with them before. Don't want to rock all night, Be all right if they were maybe better musicians, but even then, I don't want to listen to it all night.
Sure.
Are you saying they're running a business out of the property?
I don't know. I just don't know why there's that many commercial vehicles. I believe if you look up the Leo Electrical, that address comes up. I don't know the rules. I bought that house maybe 6 years ago,
Okay,
so
so,
I don't know all the rules and
We
regulations
do have
around
rules
that.
on home-based businesses.
I
so-
know when I came from Wakefield, if you had a commercial vehicle, it had to be parked inside of a garage or anything like
We
that.
don't require that, but you can't run a business and store that amount of commercial vehicles in a residential neighborhood.
well, that garage has got 2 doors going into it,
Yeah, it's a big garage.
and it's got an angle iron coming out on the front.
I haven't been
It
down,
does, that's
Put
what,
a pulley on to lift stuff out of a truck and stuff.
I haven't been down there, so.
but that is the house, yeah. You know, you're describing it perfectly, sir.
And you're gonna tear that garage down? It's the other garage that you,
There's no garage being torn down. It's just the house that's gonna be torn down and rebuilt on
Okay.
the same footprint.
but this garage that I just described is part of the lot, right? And that's where the bathroom is.
There is a bathroom in there, yes, there is.
Okay. Now I know why the bathroom was there. I was wondering why they had a bathroom. Now I understand. Okay,
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, that garage was granted a variance, I believe back in 1978, and built in 1979 on the previous owner. Whatever is in that garage, according to the owner, was in there when he moved in there. But aside from that, as far as running the business out of the garage, he has registered with the town as a
That doesn't
a
allow
home
you to.
occupation.
That doesn't allow, registering with the town clerk is, for a business certificate, doesn't allow you to violate zoning. I would probably suggest you continue until we can inspect the property, the alleged zoning violations, and take a look. And as you're probably well aware, if you buy a house that has violations, the State Building Code Board of Appeals has upheld it numerous times. You bought the violation.
Well, he has no problem coming into
So-
compliance.
Well, it sounds like we have another issue down there too, so do you want to continue until we can inspect it and see what's going on down there?
Also, there's a lot
Yeah.
of questions here.
I think I've been by there a few times, and I agree with the gentleman that I've seen commercial trucks parked in
We have
front
a
of it.
very strict bylaw
Wasn't
regarding
sure that
home-based
that was part
business.
of that lot, but now that I am more aware of what was going on, I'd be in favor of that, yeah.
I'd feel better if we knew it was in compliance before we started
Yeah.
voting on things that are out of, zoning compliance.
Is that satisfactory to you? You
That's
willing
satisfactory to me,
do
Mr. Chairman,
that?
sure.
Okay,
So to continue?
We'll set it up.
Is this a continuance then?
Want me to set up a date and time?
Yeah. Tomorrow or next week, give me a call and we'll get out there.
You need another,
Did the
Continue.
board want to visit it, or just you?
no, the board doesn't want to do this. Scott's gonna
Okay.
handle that.
No, we don't.
Sounds like zoning
This is a
violations, so
compliance thing.
we'll take a look and either we'll confirm that they're there or confirm that they're not there and report back to the board.
okey-dokey.
Okay, we need a motion. I have a motion for a continuance.
So moved.
Motion's made, is there a second?
Yep,
Motion's made and seconded, all those in favor vote?
yep.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye. Aye,
I, yes,
thank you, unanimous.
I never know if I'm voting.
The next
Wait,
meeting
You're
is
number 5.
March
Yes,
28th.
I am tonight,
Well-
on everything.
All right, so next one is what? Oh, Lonergan Road.
Yep.
Okay.
Next item on the agenda. 21 Lonergan Road, application number 1070.
The zoning board of appeals will hold a public hearing February 28th, 7 PM at Fuller Meadow on the following petition. On the application of J&V Realty Trust for a special permit under section 9.4 pursuant to section 3.1.2 of the Middleton zoning bylaw, or any additional relief the board may find necessary, to approve the build out of a 11,700 square foot portion of a 23,000 square foot building for the relocation of an auto body shop on the property located at 21 Lonergan Road, found on Assessor's Map 33, Parcel 19A. The abutters have been notified, and there are bunches of comments.
Counsel?
Good evening. Arthur Caracasani for Auto Body Builders. We have with us tonight Paul Toscano, Keith Ells, the principals of Auto Body Builders. Some of you may already know them. They're currently operating business. And the current trustee owner of the property, Jason Vining, is here. This building is, probably most of you know, 21 Lonergan Road. It's the current location of Salem Metal, Salem Metal Fabricating, and it's got a long name. We always call it Salem Metal. They're in the process of relocating to North Main Street. It's a new property. The applicants will be purchasing the entire property, but the business that they currently run up behind Captain's Pizza will be relocating to the eastern half of this building. That section of the building is approximately 11,700 square feet. The entire building is quite a box building. This actually shows the right-hand side. That's essentially the style of the building. Is approximately 23,000 square feet. So this is about half. It's literally a dividing wall down the middle. You may even see a picture of it as I go through this. It's in the M1 district. Important to note, I don't know how many of you got a chance to, how in-depth got to review the materials, but the exact same use special permit was granted by the Middleton Zoning Board of Appeals on October 17, 1990. At that point, the same gentleman ran the operation on behalf of what we know of as Ira Motors. And it ran for approximately 10 years, that location. It hasn't run for quite some time, so it has lapsed. And also, in a general sense, given that that's a machine shop at this point in time, and metal fabricating and coatings and lots of other things all having to do with metals and items, the proposed use, in a large sense, is remarkably similar in terms of light industrial, light manufacturing. As I alluded to, they've been operating the current business at 227 Rear Maple Street. That's right behind Captain's Pizza. Some of you are probably very familiar with it. If you've gone to Captain's Pizza and looped around and out the back way, family ownership owns a lot of the properties up there. Where was I? They've been there over 15 years. They've outgrown the property. If you've been by there, you realize they literally use every centimeter of their building, every square centimeter. Very difficult to conduct anything in their office, which is about the size of this table, I think. The opportunity has presented itself to purchase the property at 21 Lonergan from the Vinings, their trust. And it's a property that they're intimately familiar with, or at least in the past, given that they worked there under the prior incarnation of a auto body repair shop. Is some of the materials that were submitted to questions posed by the health agent, they currently and intend to continue taking all appropriate contemporary environmental safeguards. They will be essentially installing a new state-of-the-art spray booth and mixing room. You're actually going to see, I'm going to show you pictures in a moment, the former ones are still on the property. All repair work will be inside the building. However, while parts are arriving on back order, wherever it is, clearances by insurance companies, a multitude of reasons that you have to take a vehicle out and put it aside somewhere. They'll use as much of the space as they got inside, but there will be a need to store some of the vehicles outside. As up in their current area, they'll use the fenced-in area, and I'm going to show you where the proposal is to locate that. At first, I'm going to show you sort of ultimately where it may be in future years. In the immediate future, it's going to be a small area because they just don't need that much area. And it would be on the north side at the rear of the building. Why don't I attempt to give you some orientation to the property. See if I can show this a little better. This is from the street, Monaghan Road. If we went left, we're down at Paradise Driving Range. Go right, you're at 114. McDonald's is at the head of the street.
Pool supply. Saints here.
St. Cyrs Pool.
Oh, yeah, St. Cyr and that little spot. Basically, it's tough to get the whole building in one picture, so this is the right-hand side of the building. You can see it, there's pavement and parking on that side. I'm going to show you another picture of that. Not as great given the sunlight, but the pavement is here. This is grass. Pavement is here, and you'll see that, well, there's a vehicle parked there. This is back here is the area we're talking about. This is the back right-hand corner of the property. On the back side, again, the lighting give us the best. This is an angled shot of the rear, the half that they're going to be using, the rear of the building. There is a garage door, a overhead door here with a loading bumper. This is for deliveries. And I'll give you a close-up of the right-hand end. This is the right-hand end, and there's actually a ramp. Hard to distinguish it here, but there's a drive-up ramp to go in this overhead door, and you'll notice it's much larger. That's where the vehicles will enter into the interior. These tanks, by the way, will be removed by the as part of the purchase. Inside, this is from the inside. Now, at the time these pictures were taken, Salem Meadows still had a lot of their equipment and supplies in the building. This is the large door, the ramps on the just outside this door. This is where the vehicles will be coming in. We have many more pictures. I narrowed this down to 8 of them. This is the loading door that was at the corner, back right-hand corner on the rear side, just so you get an orientation of where that is from the inside. Now, I mentioned earlier that the spray booth is still in the facility. This was the spray booth that they used back when they were working for IRA. It's still there. Obviously, supplies and so forth of the current use is there. The future booth, they may even be using parts of this, but which look somewhat similar. They are a lot, I mean, obviously a car goes inside to spray and all the fumes and so forth they handle. And this is the mixing room. This is, to the left would be the spray booth. And I'm going to show you a diagram of that. First, let me give you an overall, before I get to the inside, the overall of the property. This is where the building was built. There were no changes since it was proposed. You can see vegetation out on the sides and then the parking all the way around the building. They'll be occupying this portion. There is a front entrance, quite a bit of vegetation to the road. I want to say it's at least 30 feet if I remember. The delivery door over here, the ramp door here. There is, I'm sure it was delivered at the time, a buffer to the rear lot line. And as is, I'm sure you're aware, this is a sensitive environmental area, at least from here back to the river and so forth. In terms of what I mentioned about the parking area, I outlined it in red here. This would be the ultimate. They probably come up a little ways on the side. It would be fenced, the normal blocking type fencing, all the way around the side, along the back. At first, they intend to use a much smaller portion of that. Did want to give an idea of where it might end up 5, 10 years from now. They obviously, doing any construction, installations, things will have to go through the department, various permits and so forth. But at this point, obviously, we're dealing with a special permit for the use. In terms of what the property looks like, other than all the supplies and equipment of the current use, try to do this one up. This is sort of bare bones view of the property. The ramp door, the other dock door, the spray booth, the mixing room. And there's a series of offices and a, what do you call the balcony?
Mezzanine.
Mezzanine. Those had to do with offices and supplies and so forth over the years. All of them currently are in use, as I recall. They work with, anytime, just like a lot of other industries, if you're gonna buy your paints from a certain supplier, they do a lot of the work for you in terms of design, booths, so forth. They have a number of them they can work with. They've narrowed down, I believe, to one in particular, all water-based paints. They were the first in the North Shore, I believe, to use water-based paints, and have continued that. It's the industry standard at this point in time. But here's a copy has been supplied to all you folks, but it's an example of where they'd have some lifts and bays and so forth and located. Obviously, it can handle quite a few cars at one time, automobiles. These are those offices in the mezzanine mentioned, spray booth, mixing room. And I believe it was probably updated to your package. This came in a little later than the initial application, so we supplied sufficient copies. I think I have a couple extra.
They all have copies.
They all have. And I think I don't have too much more. We did, I think it was earlier this week, I'm trying to remember what today is, yes. Earlier this week, we got a list of questions, but it might have come in the end of last week from the health department. They drafted up some answers to them. I put them in English and forwarded them to the board late yesterday afternoon. And if they didn't make a packet, I have plenty of copies. It had to do with a lot of very sensitive issues, obviously. Mostly, how do you handle leaking parts? On automobiles, typically when it's coming in, most of them have been in an accident. And most of them have something leaking. If they're towed, they have a contract tower that takes care of it before it comes. If by chance there are ones coming in that are leaking, they immediately take them inside. They have all these, you got the names to them, it's escaping me right now, but kits.
The spill kit.
That soak up the matter, so forth, that surround the vehicle, go under it, all those precautions. It's standard in their industry. They've been practicing it already. There's been no issues, I believe, up where they are now. It'll be a continuing practice. There's spill kit, yeah, in the unlikely condition, you always have speedy dry handy. Most parts are, as they explained, drain immediately. You can't wait around. And a lot of times, whether leaking or not, I'll give an example. I knew my car had major damage and was brought in there a couple of years ago. They took it right inside because they noticed immediately it was dripping some oil, took it in. But not only do you have to get rid of the oil or do whatever they're doing there, you're looking at transmission, so forth. Anything that's remotely could be involved. Obviously, late this afternoon, I got relayed to me it was almost 1 or 2 sentence expressed concern from the conservation agent, and I'm not sure that the person had had a chance to review the responses to Mr. Fullerton's questions, because that would seem to deal with those issues. Those are reasonable restrictions, basically no leaking parts or vehicles, whatever, stored outside. That can't be tolerated. You don't want them even getting on the cement, on the hot top. Inside, further precautions. The flooring was built to be impervious. One of the other issues that was raised is whether there was stormwater management drains on the parking areas outside, because I didn't notice any on the plot plans, and I confirmed with Jason there aren't any. They weren't were evidently not needed back when they did it. It is a small area around the building enclosed. There's lots of vegetation beyond that buffer. I'm assuming that was the consideration. Inside, obviously, any drains are closed, but I'm not sure this area even has drains.
It'll be required to be.
Yeah, as
added
part of
the.
Yeah. Building codes are going to require
Plumbing
all
code
those
requires
plumbing.
the floor drains in the tight tank be added for the use.
Let's see. And also overall, as we answer these items, the proposed use certainly is no more impactful either on the environment, town utilities, public safety, traffic flow, certainly no more impactful than the current use. Probably going to be less impactful in a lot of ways because to a certain extent there's less traffic. Although I'm not sure you have all that, you don't have customers regularly coming in at Salem Meadow. Not mine, Craig. And I did, mindful that there's the criteria that the board has to meet, and I took the liberty of looking at a couple of other minutes and decisions of the board. So I did put something into writing that the board is welcome to edit, use, whatever they want to do, whatever you would like to do. And I didn't get those ahead of time, but I'll hand them out now.
Thanks.
My fingers work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And try to answer the best we could to each of the criteria items. Community needs, traffic and pedestrian flow, adequacy, utilities, public services, neighborhood character, impact on the environment, potential economic and fiscal impact. I already mentioned impact on the environment. In terms of neighborhood or character of that area, it's light manufacturing, industrial buildings. They're all of the nature of a square box. In fact, the Vinings, I don't know if you still do, but own the building immediately across the street. Smaller, but a similar style building, and that's all that's in that area. So if there's an area that this building and use fits, this is it. I'm not, maybe 1 or 2 other areas in town would be similar, maybe 3 areas, but certainly it's appropriate in this area. Obviously, we have the principals here for any questions you may have, and that's our presentation.
I'll start with a question about the building there, Council. What is the other part of the building being used for?
Well, Salem Meadows in the process of moving out.
There?
It's going to be empty.
It's going to be empty,
They're looking for a tenant.
so they're
They'll be
looking
renting it out.
to lease that.
Yeah.
I see.
And they'll have, you know, any tenant would have to
And
go
is there going to
through.
be a permanent separation between this area?
It is permanent now.
It is permanent
Yeah,
now.
I think it's a
Okay, so the
cement
building's
block wall.
already divided,
Yep.
is that right?
It's not cement block, Arthur, it's fire-rated divider.
fire-rated divider.
Metal
You
stud
probably got a
drywall.
small glimpse in
I think one of the pictures showed it, Arthur.
Yeah, the interior, the one of the, this is the ramp door, this is the wall.
Okay.
You gotta hide a lot of,
Any other board members have any questions, Counsel?
the only other item I would add is, obviously, when they went in, located where they are now, they were before a prior incarnation of the board, and all the same questions, you know, same issues came up, so they knew all what to deal with this time around in terms of parking, storage, pots, drainage, all those issues. I would also mention that my research of the title showed that there was a Conservation Commission order of conditions, but that was back when the building was being built. And other than the usual bales of hay and so forth.
When was that you're referring to, Counsel?
I'm
What
sorry?
was the date that you're referring to?
It would have been, hearing was held March of 1987.
87.
Yeah, and it was,
original
but
building.
this was not recorded until
When they built it,
1991.
yep.
So they had to
I
go
think we
through
have
some more approvals.
conditions we gotta look at here, too.
The only one that, and this would stand to reason, that would be applicable beyond the construction process, no inside drains to be connected to outside storm drainage system. That's,
Yeah.
to me,
Pretty standard.
normal practice.
Is there anyone else to speak in favor of this application?
I bought J. Currier, 135 Forest Street, in a butter. I own 22 Lonigan Road. And I'm speaking in favor of it. I think the traffic, I think it's a good fit for it. I remember when Ira, these guys ran it prior, there wasn't a problem, and I think it's a good fit for the town. That's an industrial area. We need things like this in town here and there. So I'm in favor for it.
Jay, do you think there's a social problem with them leaving Captain's Pizza?
Could be, you could ask these guys.
You're gonna lose business.
But, no, I'm just here to speak in favor.
Thank you.
Not against. Thank you.
Anyone to speak in opposition? Commissioner, you reviewed the application. Do you have any comments?
Yeah, any issues we have at the current location have nothing to do with this tenant.
Thank you. I think we have to talk about some conditions.
Which the Board of Health letter might, there's quite a few here. You know.
Okay, you want to read them?
We have some correspondence. Conservation Commission, I think you mentioned already, they sent a letter dated February 28th regarding 21 Lonergan Road. The following comments: a portion of the property line lies within the 100-year floodplain associated with the Ipswich River and within the 100-foot buffer zone to the wetland resource area, and the entire property lies within a DEP-approved Zone 2 wellhead protection area. From a conservation perspective, we'd like to see a restriction on outdoor storage of vehicles and materials within this environmentally sensitive area. And that was from the Concom. Fire Department, dated February 22nd. Obviously, the sprinkler system will have to be certified for the intended use. The fire alarm system will need to be adjusted if there's any changes. Paints, chemicals will need to be stored according to code, in addition to any other codes and regulations, and that's from the fire chief. And then there were 11 questions from the Board of Health, which I think would, the answers would actually be conditions. I'm thinking this is kind of lengthy. Did everybody read this, or do you want me to
No.
read it?
No, I don't think anyone's seen that.
Nobody's seen this? Okay. Do you want me to do each question and the answer, or just read the answers?
I brought extra copies if
Whoever's filing might want that, yeah. I'll try to paraphrase really quickly. So the first question Derek was asking about holding tanks, wastewater, being inside the protection area. Property does not have any IHWT in the designated area to the best of the applicant's knowledge. Such a tank is required. It will be properly maintained. No chemicals or waste liquids will be discharged into the groundwater. The second question was about outside vehicles. Will there be proper measures of that? Vehicles stored outside will be on fenced and paved area only. Any vehicle that has leaking fluids, procedures are in place for proper containment and disposal. And our contracted tow company takes precautions for containment and cleanup prior, and will notify us prior to bringing the vehicle onto the property so we can have necessary equipment in place to deal with the fluid leaks. Question 3 had to do with the facility having a containment tank and needing a secondary containment around that tank due to leakage. So a 55-gallon drum used for recycling fluids in secondary plastic containment tank. All fluids are maintained by a company in Charlestown. Question 4, are there any storm drains on the property? And they talked about parts and batteries. There are no storm drains in the designated area that the applicant is aware of. All fluids will be drained into proper fluid drain pans and production area with impervious floors. Question 5 had to do with the MSDS material safety data sheets being available. All SDS data sheets will be supplied by PPG and will be on site. Question 6 has to do with certain automotive parts being kept inside and not outside. All parts containing fluids will be stored inside after proper draining. Question 7 has to do with the facility convert to use of waterborne coatings and paints. Question 7, all PPG waterborne paints only will be used. Question 8 has to do with all body work being completed inside or not. Answer, all repairs will be performed inside in designated repair bays with impervious floors. Question 9 had to do with cleaning the vehicles being washed in a bermed area. All vehicles will be cleaned off-site. Question 10, ensure facility complies with local fire department titles. And the applicant will reply with all such permitting if warranted. And question 11, ensure emissions comply with DEP and EPA standards. We comply with all DEP and EPA requirements. We continually follow all safe work practices. And that is from the owners. And that's it.
It may be advisable, I'm not going to tell the board what to do, to make those answers part of the conditions or whatever they be abided by.
We have a motion, we'll have conditions with the motion as it comes, okay? Is there a motion?
Do we need some time to pull it together? You already got it?
Waiting for
Do
you
you want some time?
to vote without a motion.
We'll take a 5-minute break.
Sure.
Okay.
We're back on.
All right, I will make a motion that the board accept the following findings. I swear I'm ready. As they relate to the proposed use of the property for the purposes of an auto body collision repair facility and activities related thereto. First, that the proposed use will continue to meet a community need for motor vehicle repair facility, as it is moving from just one side of town to the other. It will, based on the evidence presented, it will have the same or less impact on the traffic and pedestrian flow and safety on the property. That the proposed use will not have any additional detrimental effect on the utilities and public services. The proposed use is consistent with the character of the neighborhood, as it is a light industrial manufacturing neighborhood. This one's a little tricky. In order to minimize its impact on the natural environment, as proposed by the applicant, they will be instituting all state-of-the-art procedures to minimize, if not eliminate, any impact on the natural environment, including, but not limited to, state-of-the-art containment and disposal technologies. In addition, the proposed use will have a positive economic fiscal impact on the community, as it will maintain the use of a valuable property, along with continuing a current use that is otherwise already here in town, thereby continuing to enhance the overall vitality of Middleton's business community. period.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's made and second. All those in favor vote?
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Based on those findings, I will make a motion to approve the special permit under section 9.4 of the bylaws pursuant to section 3.1.2 in the table of use regulation C11 for motor vehicle general or body repair, for the use of the property as an auto body collision repair facility and its related activities, with the following conditions. Dun, dun, dun. Let's see.
Do this one. This one here?
Do the easy ones first. First, petitioner shall obtain all applicable building and fire permits for the use of all proposed auto repair bays. The facility shall be maintained in a clean and sanitary manner and shall comply with all applicable health, safety, and sanitation codes and standards promulgated by the town's building, wire, plumbing, health, and fire inspectors. All repairs shall be made within an approved automotive bay. No damaged cars or cars that are work in progress shall be parked outdoors overnight. Come back to that one. Let's see.
Get a clarification on that one?
I think I know where you're going, but yeah, go ahead.
So, cars awaiting repair, just from an enforcement,
Yeah, I circled that. I'm kinda,
May I interject?
please.
They'll have, primarily the cars are stored outside are in two categories. One is one that is awaiting repair, has been drained and all that, and awaiting repair because often they don't get started until certain parts arrive. And secondly, they may have one that's been opened up, they've done a major repair, now they gotta wait for further approvals by an insurance company and further orders. So oftentimes they are in the process, but they're not being worked on currently. It's a couple-day delay. They experience that same process up where they are now. And oftentimes it's necessary to move those out of the way to work on others. And it also,
the approval at their current location, I believe, calls for them to be stored in a screened area. If I'm not mistaken, the permit where they are now, they're allowed to store vehicles that are in the condition that the attorney just described, but they have to be in the enclosed,
In the
enclosed,
fenced-in area.
screened and fenced area.
yeah, that's why we proposed a fenced
And then
area.
maybe the condition of no leaking vehicles instead, instead of no vehicles.
Okay, so here's what I'm gonna do. The condition as to the no damaged cars or cars that are work in progress shall be parked outdoors overnight will be stricken. Replaced with all damaged cars or cars that are work in progress shall be parked within the screened area as delineated on the proposed site plan. And shall be you gonna enforce that? Crawl under every car that's behind the fence?
How about just all cars outside have to be in an enclosed area?
Right,
But
but the concern is that
concern
they're
is
all.
leaking.
Yeah. That was the whole point behind the other one, and which is why we kept them all inside, because we wanted them, if they're inside, they're within the containment area. The floor is such that
That petition also never claimed to want outside storage.
Right.
Which these gentlemen are asking for and currently have. Those other petitioners, I've figured out so far, they agreed to a lot of things. I issued stop work orders this week on their property, so.
We're trying to avoid that.
Yeah, I mean, we've never had an issue, in my time here, we've never had an issue with these guys down there.
So how would you
You
word
also
that?
should cover people that are yet to be
I'm not sure the
repaired
wording,
or
but
after
basically, they
they've been
can't be
repaired.
leaking, they need to be, you know, if the cars are outside.
Watertight,
Yeah.
weather tight.
Yeah, I mean, not leaking or subject to, I mean, if they're leaking and they're within that area, obviously the conservation agent's gonna have an issue, Board of Health, fire, me. Not sure the correct way to word it, but
Gentlemen, how can we fix it? I'm not in the auto body repair business, so how can we protect you from having Scott crawling under your cars that are outside in the parking lot?
My suggestion is any car that gets towed in, if there are any leaks or anything, they get addressed immediately before they're put outside.
Okay.
And usually if it's a cracked radiator, we can always pull the radiator to prevent that. Another issue is sometimes when you start the cars, when they don't have the radiators in them, they'll have a tendency to leak more fluids. So pulling the cars in and out with any fluids, it does have a tendency to damage the motors too. But we can definitely plug up everything in these cars before they go outside, absolutely.
And if you don't mind, when we do purchase the property, it is our property, and we want to make sure we take pride.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
you know, right now, we rent, and we try and keep it as neat as possible. You know, we have some challenges with, you know, the environment we're in. But where we control the environment, it's our property, we're gonna make sure it's in.
Yeah.
And we want customers to walk in there, and, you know, they're gonna walk in the front, and they're not gonna know it's an auto body shop. They're gonna walk in the office, they won't know if they're in a doctor's office, a dentist, or a body shop. They won't, they're gonna feel very comfortable. Out back, we wanna make sure our employees are happy, clean environment, and I wanna make sure that the parking lot is clean.
Right.
You know, pretty tough on my guys to make sure that we keep the place somewhat clean. But, you know, there's a lot of things out of our control on the property that we're currently in. So once we are in our own place, we can control it quite a bit more. All the fluids will be.
Yeah, and I mean, we weren't not trying to make things hard. And, you know, as we did with the previous petitioner for a similar facility, you know, we want it to be as easy for you to do what's being asked of you, which is why kind of hit the pause button on that one. Just
maybe it's outdoor store, you know, vehicles out store in compliance with the Board of Health and Conservation recommendations, the letters they wrote. Because I believe Derek's addresses vehicles outside as well as.
Yeah, so I think, well, which is why I'm gonna back it up a little bit. So
Conservation agent just asked that it be restricted, right?
refresh my recollection. Say again.
I'm pretty sure.
Conservation Department just asked, like to see a restriction on outdoor storage of materials within the environmentally sensitive area.
Which is the whole area, because they are in the wellhead area.
I must,
Probably because, yeah, of the leakage.
I read that to be not a prohibition, but a restrictions, which I think what we've proposed in the answers to Derek's questions are quite a few. We have no problem adopting that as a condition, be in compliance with that. I would suggest that it's kind of obvious when a vehicle is leaking, and there'd be a prohibition against vehicles with fluids leaking being positioned.
I think everyone understands
stored.
what can't be out there. I think we're just trying to
Yeah,
figure out
and
the
I
right
think-
wording.
And that's why I don't think we need to beat a dead horse here either. I think and there was a method to the madness of the order at which I went. The second condition is that the facility will be maintained in a clean and sanitary manner and shall comply with all applicable health, safety, and sanitation codes.
Yeah, well, that would do it.
I've already thrown you under a big umbrella.
And ultimately, there's conservation rules, there's Board of Health rules, there's fire department rules.
Which are all encompassed by that condition, so we're not, let's not nitpick for, you know, all outdoor storage of motor vehicles shall be done in the fenced-in area.
And that's a paved area also, right?
Yes.
There shall be no additional outside storage on the facility. Period. Broken cars that hopefully aren't leaking behind the fence. That's it. Fair enough? Does that make sense?
Yep.
A broad brush, but not too broad. The other condition that we had with the other facility, which I don't know if it necessarily applies based on, but I'll throw it on that. The petition shall ensure that all parts and materials incidental to the operation of the facility shall be stored in a designated area, indoor area, and concealed from view from outside of the building. Basically, you don't need peeping toms looking for copper.
Do you have room if a part comes for a future work on, that you can put it all inside?
Yes, yep.
Okay.
We have designated areas for damaged parts to show the insurance companies inside, plus all the new parts.
So one of the conditions, I'm just gonna was that all repairs shall be made within an approved automotive bay. I'm gonna amend that to an approved indoor automotive bay. Just kill two birds with one stone on that. So I'm gonna play devil's advocate on that one.
How about,
Can you do something else? What can you do outside?
Nothing. All repairs, right? I guess you could change the tire, right?
Make it drivable.
Yeah, I mean, that's not necessarily repair, I don't think, changing the tire to drive something in if it comes in with a
Flat tire,
bad tire. I mean, what else would you have to do outside?
Well,
This is what I affectionately call the angry neighbor condition.
Yep.
That, you know, hey, wait a minute, I saw them open up the hood and remove the radiator before they brought it in the building. That constitutes outside repair, and that's in violation of their conditions. We don't want that.
Okay.
So.
Which is fine. The only thing I'd like to add is if the car is gonna leak, we have to take care of it before we start it.
What is
because we
that
just don't want
called?
it-
Remedial measures.
Here we go.
I like that.
Not that we're gonna be working on it, but we just have to
Big long
make sure it's
schoolwork.
not leaking oil.
Yeah,
You're not out there banging on it with a hammer, you're not.
exactly. Yep.
Yeah, we don't like
So
doing that
I'm gonna
outside.
amend that condition, say, all repairs shall be made within an approved indoor automotive bay with the limited exception of remedial measures necessary to maintain condition 2, which is that you gotta follow all the codes. So you can go out there and fix put a Band-Aid on it so you're not in violation of condition 2, but you can't go out there and it's a nice sunny day and be out there banging away. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
He'd be golfing anyway.
True. Anything else that I'm missing?
I think you pretty much covered it.
I think the general condition 2 encompasses the health inspectors.
Okay.
letter.
That was what I was
If
concerned
there's
about,
something
yeah.
specific,
Does it address the Concom's concern? Yeah, it does. Okay, yep.
yeah, so I'll just amend this condition to that the facility shall be maintained, blah, 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 blah. The town's building, wire, plumbing, health, and fire inspectors, as well as the Conservation Commission.
Okay, good.
That's all I got.
Motion's made, is there a second?
Second?
Motion's made and second, all those in favor vote?
Aye.
Yes.
Unanimous?
Thank you.
See you down there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the
You
consideration
have
of
a
the time.
business card that I could have. I'd like to see afterwards places that we've approved. Drive by so I know where they are. Does it have a map on the backside of your card?
It does, yeah.
It should.
Well, for a current location. And I apologize, I don't have one on me. I have everyone else's card but my own.
Probably have mine.
Sort of like my wallet.
But I'm sure I can get
There
you
other-
a couple of cards.
Any other business from board members? If not, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Meeting's adjourned.